at your career thus far, it truly can't be defined by your current record. As you were a guy who you obviously know was probably 2 to 3 fights away before a potential UFC or big league contract, before suffering a string of really unfortunate and extremely unordinary losses from some crazy circumstances. But now with your current win streak and hopes to extend it next month, it seems that you are really back on track to getting to that big league contract. So can you just talk about your mindset and approach to successfully regain momentum after that tough stretch?
Yeah, like obviously, like you said, the losses were like it was baffling because like when a normal loss happens, you can take like feedback, like, oh, like you messed up here, you messed up there. There's little technical things, but everything that happened was like super bizarre. Like I got clipped by a knee I got clipped by a knee once, and then there was like a phantom stoppage that was kind of like, incompetent by a referee, and like I tore my calf the first 5 seconds into the fight of my last loss, and it's like, all right, how do you actually take stuff from that? So I guess there was like more of a spiritual approach to it, and like me searching like my higher power to overcome that type of stuff, because like it wasn't a good spot that I was in when I had those like string of losses. Like a lot of people probably would have quit and gave up, but like I had already sacrificed everything for my life. I sold out of a successful business to move out to Vegas and like pursue an actual career. And I mean, being a flyweight, like a lighter weight class, is not as saturated. So like there was the possibility of like gaining momentum back. And I do have a style that like I can string off wins together in pretty highlighting fashion. And there's like a lot of, like I said, the hot, whether you call it God or the higher powers or whatever you want to call it, that's definitely what dug me out of the ditches and got me to keep fighting. And just more like, I don't know, when you look at the ancient samurais, they looked at themselves as already dead before they went into war. And like they did that so there was no worry of anything else that could possibly bad happen. And I think I started taking that approach too, that, like, all right, I'm already dead. What's the worst that could possibly happen? I'm just going to keep going. I already know that I have the skills. I already know that I'm surrounded by the people that, you're seeing on UFC every weekend and all that stuff. Like those coaches are the coaches that coach me, and like my training partners are world champions and the best guys in the world. And it's like, they keep me around. If I wasn't worth it to them, then I wouldn't be training with them, but they keep me around for a reason. So it's like, I know that I'm good enough to keep going. And, I just had to swallow my ego. And, I wanted to be an undefeated world champion. Now it's like, all right, my comeback story is going to be one for the ages, and it can hopefully inspire and motivate people that might be down in the ditches that, have gone to pursue something and it hasn't gone their way right away. Hopefully my story can inspire them to keep going no matter, what brick wall they've ran in or whatever. And I mean, part of the reason that I've kept going is because I know that I'm good. I know that I have the skills to, be in the top of not just be in the UFC, but be in the top of the UFC. And it's like, it was obviously baffling how the losses and all that stuff came together, but I knew that I had the skills to keep going. And, that's now we're here. Now I'm on a 2-fight win streak. I fight again in a month in a big fight that, whether this is the one that propels me to the next level or not, I'm close again. And it's like, I'm not overlooking anybody. I'm not overlooking anything. All that matters is my fight in a month. And I'm just going to go out there and showcase my skills and my abilities and all my hard work again, and, take another step closer to the league. But, like I said, everybody thinks when you go chase your dreams and give everything up to go chase your dreams, it just kind of happens. Like you just have to work hard and it happens. Nobody talks about like when shit doesn't go right. Sorry for cussing. I won't cuss anymore.
No, you're good.
All good. But everybody like, it thinks it's all cool to go chase your dreams and stuff and all that stuff. And obviously it's hard, but when things don't go right that are supposed to go right. And like, then it's like, all right, I just sacrificed everything. Do I quit now? It's like, no, you keep going. And that's where hopefully my story can inspire and motivate people, whether it's in MMA, or whatever their goals are in life. It's like, you can keep going and make it happen. Like it's just another stepping stone. So it's kind of a broad answer for that question, but
no, all good. Yeah, that's for sure. That what you're talking about, like the samurai kind of mindset, that's really interesting, really, really unique. I haven't I watch a lot of like interviews and stuff, a bunch of different fighters. I haven't really seen many people like kind of adapt to it. So it's really interesting. But moving on to your fight in just a few weeks. I wasn't really able to get much film or information about your upcoming opponent in David Wilson. So, what is going to be your approach, and how do you think you stylistically match up?
Stylistically, I think on paper, I have skills that are better than his, whether it's striking or grappling or wrestling. I think I'm better than him everywhere. I'm not going to give my game plan away, but I think there is a very big skill gap in one area and it's going to get exposed. And I think I'm in a lot better shape than him as well, too. So, I'm just going to go out there, keep my chin down. And when the openings come, I'm going to take them, whether it's striking or grappling or any of that stuff. I think that he's like kind of well-rounded too. Like he has decent striking and decent wrestling, but I think there's a skill gap in one of those that's going to get exposed. So not without saying too much of what my game plan is, that's going to be it. And I know that he's pretty aggressive. And if he tries to sit, if he doesn't come out aggressive, then I'll be patient. But I feel like he's been aggressive in all of his fights and all that stuff that my coaches have watched and that I've watched. And it's going to be, he's going to throw his cards on the table early, and I'm going to take advantage of that.
Nice. And then you mentioned it a little bit before and just now about talking to your coaches. I know these past 4 to 5 years, you've been training at Xtreme Couture, and I know it's meant a lot to you to really be a part of that team. How much of that progress that you've seen, like in your game, do you credit to being one of like the primary training partners in 5 UFC title camps and just being around some of those guys?
I mean, that's like I said, it's part of the reason why I didn't quit, because like when you said it, like I've been a part of 5 UFC world title camps and for the flyweight division, and like I wasn't the guy that they brought in just to pay to beat up on. Like I was the guy that came in to push the contender or the champion to the limit. So it's like that told me what I'm capable of. And like it's sparring sessions and all that stuff, so it doesn't mean anything unless you take it into competition and showcase it the same way. But it's like that's part of the reason why I didn't quit and why I didn't give up. And I know that I'm capable of being an elite mixed martial artist and showcasing those skills at the highest level. And it's just like, I mean, my first day at Xtreme, like training at Xtreme, my training partner was Joseph Benavidez, and he was at the time #1 in the world in his camp to fight for the #1 contender fight. And that was like my first training day, training partner or anything like that. And I was just like, all right, like if this is what I want to do, like this is where I have to be. And it's kind of just been like that, since I've been out here. And like there's other guys that aren't in the UFC that could beat up world champions right now that I train with every day. One of my friends, Kobe Fair, like they followed me out from Ohio. I train with him pretty much every day. And there's just monsters. Like Las Vegas is the mecca for mixed martial arts. And it's just like literally after my first day out here, I was like, if I want to try and really do this, this is where I have to be. And it's like I've been a part of 5 UFC world title fights, and then the amount of high profile fights that have just been in our gym and all that stuff, like that I've been on the mat surrounded by, it's insane. I mean, Francis trains at Xtreme, like Eric Nixick gets coach of the year every single year. And like, it's just the other, like Jose Aldo's striking coach moved up here last year and started working with me. And
Oh,
it's
wow.
like, I mean, Jose Aldo is obviously pretty good. And it's just like, we kind of stumbled across each other and we're like, hey, let's train, blah, blah, blah. And now we're training together consistently. My head coach, Danny Davis, he's like Sean Strickland's head coach too. So it's like I get him picking my mind and watching my sparring rounds every single day. It's hard. It's like you don't rise to the level of the competition that you're facing. You fall to the level of your training, and that's why I never gave up. It's like, all right, maybe I took this kid for a reason. I know I have a style that can go on a 10 or 15 fight win streak. So I just am going to put my chin down and keep fighting. And being around Xtreme, it's like I said, that's why I didn't give up. It's not like I was living in a fool's paradise training at a McDojo or something. It's like I'm training at the best gym in the world and I'm doing good. So it's not a fool's paradise. It's just got to put my chin down and keep going.
Yeah, for sure. Can you kind of walk us through like your participation in those training camps and how it's similar, obviously very different to how your individual training camps go?
Yeah. I did 2 training camps with Joe Benavidez, and like we would just with Joe it was a little bit different because he didn't want to make it too much towards like all about him, yada yada. Like he did his strength and conditioning and some of like his individual workouts by himself, but he always did the team practices too. And it was just like I just went with him. I would train with him. I would spar with him, And like, we would push each other, and I would always try and pick his mind like before and after, just because it's like obviously his input's pretty valuable. And we got along because like I know how to be a good training partner too, like how to push each other but not hurt my training partner at the same time too. And like that's like a high level skill to have out here, because it's like we're not coming out here and playing pillow fighting, we're fighting each other. So it's like you have to push your training partner, but if you're constantly hurting him or cutting him, or you're constantly like, wussing out of the training sessions because it's too hard, then like they're not going to want to mess with you. So it was like you had to keep it at that high level consistently. And I did 2 training camps with Joe, and then I did 3 with Brandon Moreno. And Brandon, I trained with Brandon a little bit before one of my wins, like my second win at Xtreme. And we kind of like got along then. I had my second fight, and then he fought for the title against Figueroa, and he had hit me up a couple times to train, but I was already in camp for another fight at that time, so it didn't actually work out together. He beat Figueroa, and then that's when my first loss happens. And like I said, I constantly would seek from the higher and seek from God, like, give me a sign. Should I keep doing this after my first loss? And Brandon hit me up. He's like, hey, I'm going to defend my title in like early fall. If you want to train with me, like you can come be a part of my team too. He's like, you can still train at Xtreme, but you can come to my practices. He's like, we'll push each other. He's like, I need you to push me. And he's like, my team will give you everything they have too. We're not just going to come in and spar. Like, we're going to do skill work. I'm going to help you out, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, obviously that works for me. And I went and we started training consistently. And it was what he said. Like, we would spar and we would go at it, and it was hard, but then we would do like Boxing Day. And like the Mexican, like where he's from in Mexico, like their boxing is the best in the world. So it was like they're teaching me the best skill work for boxing in the world, and their grappling and jiu-jitsu is obviously pretty good too. And we trained consistently. Like I said, we did that consistently for almost 2 years. And he actually took me out to Tijuana for a week and a half to train with him at his home camp at Xtreme in Tijuana. So I got to go to Mexico and like train at his gym, and like his boxing coach trained plenty of boxing world champions that like we've seen on TV and pay-per-view and all that time. And I got to train with them for a week and a half and see that culture and see all that stuff in Mexico. And I mean, it was just a blessing. Like I said, I know what the bar is. Like, I know for personally what the bar is. So it's like, it's not a guess for me. I know exactly what it is. And that's why, like once again, why I never gave up and why I kept fighting. But with Brandon, it was obviously a little, he helped out everybody that was in his team, and like they helped me, but it was based towards him too, and which is okay. I mean, when you're a world champion, a defending world champion, or fighting for a world title, you can gear things towards you a little bit more. There's a lot more money on the line. There's like a lot more on the line. You don't want other people that could potentially be in your weight class watching you like at a regular gym and stuff. So that's why I wasn't at Xtreme. It was at the UFC Performance Institute. But so that's pretty much what it was like.
Nice. Have you been able to use the UFC PI? You don't, is that?
Go ahead. What were you saying?
No, that's it. That's it.
Yeah. So like, I can go there whenever there's somebody in the UFC that like is there. If like I'm going to train with them, or if they're using like the sauna or like the recovery room, and like, hey, you want to come? I'll make sure I'll come. But I can't just go there by myself. You can't go there unless you're in the UFC. But I've trained there, I mean, a lot of times, and been there a bunch too. So that's another cool thing, because it's like you're training there, and Forrest is like the president, or he's got like a high up rule, Forrest Griffin. So like I'd be training with Brandon Moreno or like somebody high level, Cody Stanman or something, and Forrest just comes out and starts watching your training session. And it's like for a while it was mind blowing. It was hard to get used to that. Like, I wouldn't get starstruck. Maybe if GSP walked through the door, I wouldn't get starstruck. I would get a little bit starstruck anymore. I don't for anybody, but it's still like, oh wow, Forrest Griffin's watching my training session and giving me feedback and stuff. And it was like, this was all just a dream to me before I moved out here. So it's pretty crazy.
Right.
But the PI is awesome, amazing facility, top to bottom. I mean, they take care of their fighters, and like, the fighters can train there for free, use all the recovery for free. They have like chiropractors and like every single doctor that you could think of at the PI that the fighters can use for free. And there's like a kitchen that they get to eat every single meal every day for free. And like their strength conditioning they can do there with some of the best S&C coaches in the world. They get to do that for free too. So it's a pretty cool facility, and they can bring in their training partners and like all that's for free for the training partners too. Like there's never a fee or anything. So I've got to dive pretty deep into all that stuff too.
Nice. So speaking on that nutrition, aspect of it, I know that you just got a new nutritionist, or you've been working with a newer nutritionist. What has he adjusted or implemented so far? And can you take us through your weight cut process, like prior to working with this newer nutritionist, and like what it's gonna look like for your upcoming fight?
Yeah, so I started working with my buddy Logan. He's from California. His name's Logan Bond. One of my training partners is one of my main training partners. His name's Matt. He was one of the top amateurs in the country. They're both from California. I trained with him a bunch and cornered him. And Logan was doing Matt's nutrition stuff, and he came out for one of Matt's fights and introduced me to Logan. Matt introduced me to Logan, and we started talking. And he watched a few of my training sessions. He's like, "Hey, man." And this was after a couple losses. He's like, "Hey, man, I know you're on some L's right now, but I just watched some crazy stuff." He's like, "If there's anything I can do to help you with like nutrition and strength and conditioning," he's like, "I got you." And this was before like my first, before I broke like the losing streak and won that fight by arm triangle. And after that fight, I messaged him because I was like, "I know I'm probably gonna have to go back down to 125 now. Like, hey, can we work together?" And he's like, "Yeah, for sure." And beforehand for 25, like I don't know. I wouldn't do it right. Like I would cut the weight too early and like try and get down too early and hold the weight. And that would end up backfiring because my body's not supposed to be down at that weight. And like I wasn't doing I always eat clean, I always eat healthy, but it wasn't like what it should be. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't the right amounts, it wasn't enough protein, it wasn't at the right times. And like I would stay hydrated and always drink a lot of water, but it wasn't exactly like what it needed to be. And like I think it definitely hindered some of my performances at 125, even though like the losses were pretty crazy. I think that it definitely hindered some stuff because like I said, if you hold your weight too long, then you're not going to recover right. Like if I cut down to 140, or if I cut from 138 to 125, weigh-ins are Friday and the Saturday and Sunday before, I'm getting down to 129, 128, 127 and holding my weight all week so I don't have to cut massive amounts of weight down. That's not good because your body's not going to recover after you weigh in. And he's like, I understand why you're worried because you don't have to cut all this weight, but he's like, we can do a few things with water loading and your nutrition where the weight's just going to fall off. And you can like water load and drink water all week and be 12 pounds over. And like when you cut the water out, X amount of water out, the day before weigh-ins, then you're not putting 10 pounds of water in you. And you've been doing it the entire week. You're going to pee out like crazy. You'll be 6 or 7 pounds over. You're still going to be hydrated. You run that weight off the day of weigh-ins and then you get on the scale and rehydrate. And all the nutrition stuff that he does too, just like the main thing that he's helped me do is like upping my protein intake and just like monitoring that. And I think that's been vital with like my weight stabilizing and how I'm feeling throughout the day with training and like all that stuff. Like I saw that like a couple weeks in to like upping my protein intake to what he was telling me. I seen like a difference in the mirror literally a couple weeks in and like with my performance and my sleep and everything like that. So, if anybody, and I know he works with me remotely and he works with a lot of people remotely. So if anybody that watches this or sees this needs help with nutrition or strength and conditioning stuff, look up Logan Bond in California. He'll take care of you.
Okay, cool. Nice. Then I have one final question because I originally from Canton.
Yep.
A bunch of my friends just graduated from North Canton. I know you went there and then you coached there for a little bit. Have you been able to use any of those coaching experiences like throughout your amateur or professional MMA career?
Have I been able to use the coaching experiences like help me out at like as an athlete?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. I mean, 100% because like when you're coaching a wrestling team, there's 16 wrestlers on a team or whatever it is. And every single match, there's 16 matches. And it's like you get to see the psychology of like how your wrestlers are handling like before and after the match and all that stuff. And like, I'm analytical and like I'm not just watching stuff pass by. I'm seeing how they handle it and like obviously trying to help them, so they do better the next time on how they approach things. And like obviously when you're trying to help them, then it's like you can apply that to your own self. So it's like I've seen that with a million different things as far as the competition goes. And I think coaching wrestling for the while that I did it honestly helped my wrestling get better because 3/4 of the time I was wrestling with my athletes. So it's like your skills are going to get better when that happens, obviously. But I would just say, like, mentality wise, like, I've seen so many matches, and like I've seen so many kids confident, overconfident, underconfident, nervous, and all that stuff, and just like seeing how they approached it and seeing like all of that stuff and like trying to help them reprogram their mind. And like you might tell them to do something and you realize like, oh wow, okay, I need to apply that to myself too. And I think that has definitely been, something as well. So, and I think too, like being a coach at a high level for as many years as I did with wrestling, like at North Canton and at Akron Coventry, it definitely like it gave. I want my coaches like to be able to pour into me the skill work and like the things that I need to work on. I don't need them to worry about how I'm feeling or like my nervousness or me staying up too late or me like eating and drinking too much and fucking around with my weight and all that stuff. I don't. Me coaching for so long, I've noticed that like my best athletes were the ones that I didn't have to worry about that. I could just pour skills into them, and I want to take that from me coaching and apply that to me as an athlete. So like my coaches don't have to worry about me being on time to practice or staying after and working on the stuff they're telling me or messing around, when I have a fight coming up or any of that stuff. I try and clear my plate up so they can just pour their skills into me and like we can just stay at the task on hand and not have to worry about a fake soap opera or anything like that, if that makes any sense.
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you. That's all I have. I really appreciate your time. It was great. I'm looking forward to go seeing you fight at the Northeast Ohio sports plant, in a few weeks, 3 weeks. And thank you so much for everything. So,
No problem. Thank you for having me on. I'm glad you get to come to this one. It's gonna be a great night on July 13th. So I appreciate you. I'm down to do this whenever you want as well.
all right, bet. Thank you so much.
No problem, Will. You have a good night, man.